No more strategic books.
I use that as a lighter.
We're not live yet, are we? We're going live.
Was it the bird file?
There
we go, we're live.
I use that as a lighter. We're human.
Yeah, they didn't know.
Okay, we're live recording.
Oh,
Okay, welcome to the special board meeting. The sun just came out, so that's a good sign. And today is Monday, February 15th, 2021. I would like to call this meeting to order. Okay, Madam Clerk, could you please do the roll call?
Trustee Claudia Swastigi.
Here.
Trustee Andrew Butler.
Here.
Trustee Manuel Godina.
Here.
Vice Chairman Travis Manning.
Here.
And Madam Chair, Maricela Pesina.
Thank you. Here. And if you would all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, if we could have the board meeting agenda postings.
Madam Chair Pesina and trustees, I request the approval of the Board of Trustees special board meeting agenda posting for Monday, February 15th, 2021. The original agenda was posted on Friday, February 12th, 2021 at 3:32 p.m. The agenda was posted on the school district website and at the Caldwell District office.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask for a motion to receive the clerk's agenda notice posting. report.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to make a motion to approve and accept the posting for Monday, February 15th.
Okay, I have a motion. I'd like to ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Right, hearing none, I'd like to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, motion moves. Or carries, motion carries. And we have, tonight is a special meeting. In our agenda, we have, the first thing on our agenda is our district continuing school operation plan for 2020 through 2021 school year. All right, and for this one, would you start us out, Superintendent French?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and trustees. So we, as you're aware, we did ask parents and students, grades 3 through 12, to participate in the survey. And parents from across the district to participate in the survey. Those results have been provided, and I have a summary. Allison has prepared a summary PowerPoint for us as well. Also, in addition, last week we asked if COA Caldwell Online Academy would share their information about if there were still openings for students who may want to, maybe if they didn't want to come back to school, if that was the decision of the board, would there be options in Caldwell Online Academy? And so that has also been shared with you, so you can see the enrollment options. We can share that on the screen as well. I did receive some updates from Southwest District Health, and that has been shared. We'll be happy to share those as well. I guess that's what we just need to start. I'm assuming that maybe, or I'll ask the board, what would you like to look at first? Would you like to look at the survey information first? Would you like to? Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to look at the survey.
Okay, so if Caleb, if you could pull up, let's look at the, it's called, excuse me. Oh, it's called Parents and Students It is one more, okay, down one, and there it is, thank you. This is the summary, it's a PowerPoint summary of the information that we received. As you know, we had a lot of comments, several comments from students and parents. So we summarized all the graphs, and then you've been able, the comments are available for you to see, and they are varied for sure. Okay. Just an overview about the parent survey. I'm gonna, with the light.
Yes, please, thank you.
So an overview, we had over 1,600 participants, and it was a short window, but we appreciated their quick response to that. You can see that we had over 1,000 responses from elementary school age, or parents from elementary school age children, and 600 plus middle school, over 500 from high school, or parents of high school students. Elementary parents, given the opportunity to have your child attend full-time, how comfortable would you feel? And this is the result. If you remember, some of you are parents who received that survey. It was a thumbs up, or a thumbs up of how comfortable you feel. 5 to the right is a very comfortable, and 4 is comfortable. And then you can see to the far left, the green would be not comfortable at all. So 3 is just the middle ground.
Dr. French, on this list, can you mention the school that weren't, that didn't get the survey?
Oh, sure, for the students?
Yeah.
You mean, okay, so this one went out to all parents. And then when we did the student survey, all schools were able to participate except for Jefferson.
Okay.
So we just have to find out why Jefferson students, but all schools were able to participate. And Canyon Springs may not have participated. I'll have to double check because their students are in full-time right now, but
Okay, thank you.
okay. So this elementary teacher or elementary parents, thanks, Caleb, next slide. How comfortable would you feel if you had your child return? And you can see you have from Moose and Clark, Lincoln, Sacagawea, Van Buren, Washington Elementary, Wilson Elementary, and then this is the Caldwell Online, which actually that makes sense because that's why parents chose Caldwell Online. They wanted an option for their child, no matter what happened, they were going to be at home. So, and it varies. So you have, even if we just looked at the blue and the orange, that percentage of very comfortable to comfortable, that kind of gives you an idea of what the elementary school parents are, what they prefer. For the most part, the majority, but there's still some concern, and I think those have to be recognized that there are parents that still have concern with. Okay, thanks, Caleb. Middle school parents, you can see it kind of changes a bit. You'll notice that as the students get older, there's that very comfortable is not as I want to say it is not really similar to the elementary. There's a difference. Okay, thanks, Caleb. Okay, so then parents from Jefferson and parents from Syringa.
Oh.
And then the online school, that makes sense again. That's why they chose online. So that these are from Jefferson and Syringa. And then high school parents. And this would include both all high school, 9-12. So both Canyon Springs and Caldwell High, parents were asked to respond. So those responses came from both high schools. And you can see, so Caldwell, Canyon Springs is in every day, 4 days. But this is interesting. You'll see like that middle ground. There's a little hesitancy of like, well, I don't know. Pretty big here for parents. I think that's one of the higher percentages that we've seen is 20%. And then of course, Caldwell Online. This is just an overview of what the survey, how it went out. Student survey. Over 1,700 students responded. And you can see the breakdown, 985 elementary, 111 Syringa Middle, 621 Caldwell High School, and 12 Caldwell Online. Elementary, how's this year going for you? So these were smiley faces, the elementary students. Now elementary, when visiting with the elementary principals, they were going to share this with their 3rd through 5th grade students. So this was from 3rd grade through 5th grade responses. And I think it's, that I hope you've been able to read some of their comments. It's been interesting to read the student comments at the elementary level. Okay. How would you feel if the schedule changed and you could come to school every day except Wednesdays? So elementary. This is Syringa Middle School. How is this year going for you? And I think this is very interesting. We have a lot of middle schoolers that are like, it's I would say that's probably
The middle school.
it is like
It's a
it's
latitude.
not what they expected for sure. Okay, and then how would they feel? And it's pretty much stays. They're middle of the road. How would they feel? But can you go back just a one bit? You're very really excited about, or I would say, yeah, this would be great. Is 9%, not so great, almost 12%. So it's really interesting. This middle ground. I mean, you have more hesitancy when we get into the upper grades. Okay, and then Caldwell High School, you'll see the same thing. We're seeing more hesitancy, I think, from the high school students. 7% are like really comfortable about they'd like to, or sorry, how the year is going for them and how it's not going for them. I think that's interesting. And then this is, we almost have the scale, right? 20%, yep, they would be very happy to be back. 23% not happy. And those comments that we've read, some of them are they appreciate that they now have the routine down. So we heard that. I have the routine down. I have a job. I'm still concerned because COVID's still in our community, but it's definitely, it's just interesting because you'll see that the older students are more hesitant. And then the Caldwell Online students, I would say they're mostly forced, but it's going okay. How would you feel if you came back every day? And I think they saw this as they would return to brick and mortar. So they're more concerned. And our Caldwell Online was meant to be Caldwell Online for students who they were planning the whole year to be online. And I believe that, that was our purpose of creating the Caldwell Online School Academy. Okay, thanks, Caleb. That's an overview of the surveys. I did put the teacher survey on that we looked at last week. I don't know if you'd like to review that one again.
Could we review it? Are you trustees, is that okay if we review it again?
It's called Staff Survey, February 2021. It's at the bottom.
All right, give me a second.
Okay. So over 400 responses, over 450 responses, 291 were classroom teachers, and then the breakdown, 157 elementary, 69 middle, 65 high school, 163 support staff, and it was open from February 4th through February 8th. On a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with expanding in-person learning to full-time? And this was a thumbs up scale as well. So to the right is very comfortable, to the far left is not comfortable. How comfortable are you with expanding in-person learning? Elementary is at the top. Then you have middle school teachers, and then middle school staff teachers, and then high school staff teachers. And then we put up a few of the comments that teachers had left. All those comments are also in Word docs as well for you to look at. And I think we just reviewed a few of them that seem to be more of they came up more often. I would say even the high school student comments mirrored the making sure there was they could physically distance. There were some concerns about lunchrooms, and teachers have said that as well, about making sure they have small enough sizes or they could physically distance. I think that's it. There's not too many. Oh, right there, sorry. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We did ask about Wednesday, and we thought there are more advantages to Wednesday than there are disadvantages.
To having Wednesday as a
Digital day, a virtual day.
Mhm.
And I did hear from Anita Wilson from Caldwell High School. They are using that day. They have students coming in on Wednesdays that may need extra time and support in their content area studies. So it's not all students may attend, but they have, I'll say several that they plan that are coming in and are invited in. So the last time we talked about it, it's been a bit ago, but inviting 300 students. So there might be 300 plus students on campus on a Wednesday and participating in that study support from their content teacher. And then we asked about anonymously asked about the COVID vaccine. Elementary is our top number, then top line, and then middle school and high school. And then we just had more comments. What do you want decision makers to know? And then obviously there were a lot of comments that are also available in Word docs. I'm looking to see, I did have a question. So we did have Southwest District Health send some information out on monthly trends and the weekly health alert levels. There was, let me look here, Caleb, let me see if this is
What was the name of that last document we looked at?
It's called Staff Survey February 2021. Okay, Caleb, this one is called the News Release Weekly Health Alert Levels. It's the second one down. Yeah, we received this just on the 11th, and Southwest District Health gave an update of the counties they serve. And Caldwell, COVID continues to spread throughout District 3. Some areas within the district are experiencing a downward trend. This is based on data available for this range. So Jim County was remaining in the orange. Oh, okay, I'll leave it to Canyon County. Sorry, Canyon County. I should have said Caldwell. That's coming out of Caldwell, Idaho, not Caldwell School District. My apologies. Kenyon County has moved to a yellow. We've gone down to an incident rate of 2.3 daily new cases per 10,000 people, which is a good decrease, and our positivity rates dropped to 7.4. As you scroll down, it's page 3. Right there, it talks about a weekly cases by school district. And we will, I mean, if our district nurse hears about student cases or staff cases, we'll report that to Southwest District Health, or parents may be reporting it based on if they go to be checked or tested. So you can see she made there's a comment, pardon me, in the letter that talks about substantial spread. And in visiting with Southwest District Health, the representative there, substantial spread in a school may mean 2 or more students that may have, so it's 2 or more. So it's not 10, but it starts with the number 2.
So substantial spread in a school.
Right.
Okay, so not in a district, in
Like
any
in a school.
particular
So
school.
if we had students in students in their English class, and 2, they're going on, and that's when they would be concerned, like, okay, maybe there's a issue there, which we've had we've been concerned about special ed on occasion. So that's when we have quarantined the classroom to make sure that if we've had 1 or 2, well, we've had 1 person, we quarantined, and then we looked to see if we need to quarantine. There's been a moment where we've had actually 2 people in that classroom, which is now of concern, right? Because you have 2, they probably shared that. Possibly. Can't guarantee it, but there's the possibility. So we quarantined the whole class. Okay, and then you can see what has been reported to them as of the date of this letter.
So can I clarify, you said 2 per classroom or 2 per school?
2 per school, that's how I took it, was 2, and it could be in a classroom, or it could,
And they're
depending on the
taking,
school, where those
Right.
students might interact.
but they're not taking into account the size of the school. But
I would have to ask her how they're looking at that. That's a good question. I have to ask how that is.
not all schools handle the same population.
Mhm. Yeah, it has not been the easiest thing to follow. Not necessarily, all of the information they're looking at, because they're looking at hospital beds. And then when does a school when is that an issue? So I keep learning more, and I will ask more. We meet again with Southwest District Health this Thursday, so I can ask those clarifying questions to be sure. Anyway, if there are other questions, if you want to, I don't. That's it. That's it on the questions. And if there were 2 in a classroom, that would be, we're going to be concerned. If there's 1, we're concerned. There's 2, we've been quarantined. I mean, it's like, okay, we better make sure we know what's going on. But it's been our contact tracing. Our principals have been doing has been helpful. The concern would be if we bring a lot of students back, say at a middle school, high school, you're talking, that's going to be more challenging to trace, because you just have more bodies and more opportunity to associate. And we've been able to keep it pretty manageable. It's not ideal, but it's manageable when you have pods or you're dealing with half the number. So that's a true statement. So were there any other pieces of data that you wanted to look at or have shared on the?
Can I just ask a question about this? It says that currently we don't have any staff that are out.
That is what our,
So
at this
is that
point in
still
time,
accurate?
well, as of the end of,
End of last week.
yeah, I can't speak to this week. Who knows? I don't know. It's like, oh, I hope not, but it's possible.
So but as of last week,
I was not a meeting where
We don't have any
staff
staff.
are out. maybe Patty Wade is aware of staff, but what's been reported to Southwest. So,
Dr. Frank, I have a question about testing. And I asked Ms. Mills about it last week, and I don't know if she's still on the call. Ms. Mills, are you on the call?
I am.
Can you maybe talk to us about testing and how, if we're in the hybrid model, elementary, K-12, will the IRI, will the ISAT, will that cause any barriers or challenges for the K-12 schools? Will that limit what they can actually do as far as instructional seat time? What are your thoughts?
Trustee Manning, Madam Chair, I guess the question as it was posed to me is testing and assessment is part of the instructional cycle. So we've been working really hard in not doing a stop and do, but a get and go. And there's certain things that we are required and mandated to do through spring testing. I think we're all aware of the IRI is mandated in May, spring, as well as the ISAT. And so the amount of time that a child will take varies based on grade level, as well as based on the amount of time that they actually need. None of the tests, with the exception, none of the tests are timed. And so they have as much time as they need to complete the state assessments, as well as our principals have done a fabulous job of not putting a student in front of a computer for huge amounts of time, that with the exception of the IRI, which is about a 20-minute assessment, the rest of the assessments can be broken up or chunked up into smaller portions of time. And so when you start to look at the assessments that we will be required to give, ISAT is given to grades 3 through 8 and also in the 10th grade. And that ranges from anywhere from 6 hours, meaning that, and this is the time that the state has identified as the average time. But a third grader will have to take a reading test for ISAT as well as a math test, and each of those average about 3 hours. And it is, fourth grade is the same. Fifth grade is more time because we've added a science test to that that's required by the state. And then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, again, is the ISAT, with 8th grade is where we give the science test. 10th grade is the ISAT, as well as the 11th grade, then we have to give the science test up there. That's the ISAT. The IRI is, I don't feel is an additional time set because we're doing that on a monthly basis anyways. It's just the May time would be the time that it counts in terms of our accountability or measurement for accountability. We are in the middle right now of our second language test, which is called the access test. And that again is required by state statute to give. That averages between 5 to 7 hours and is given by some of our proctors, and Shani Cummings is taking care of that. And then we have our special ed population that a few have been selected or have not selected, but they have been through their IEP process. They are selected to give the alternative test, which is not a time test. It's based on what their IEP is saying. So in terms of answering the assessment question, if we continue to do a get and go rather a stop and do, I don't believe instructional time can be or will be compromised, but it will take a balancing act because of the reduction in time that we're currently, at least at the elementary level, AM, PM type schedule. And then working with the middle schools, we'll have to get fairly creative in terms of how we assess that. The good news is that the window opens up about the middle of March and extends through the end of May. So it's not like we have to take an entire week and put a student in front of a computer for a solid week. I hope I've answered your question.
Is there a disadvantage to testing kids early?
Trustee Manning, could you ask that a different way?
So if you're gonna, so the testing window starts in March, and if you, let's say, start testing kids in March, are they going to maybe score lower than if you test them in April or May?
It all depends on the scope and sequence of the instruction. What we would like to do is get through at least 80% of the instruction before we do the ISAT testing. Normally, we wait because of the where we are in scope and sequence with curriculum. The months of late April and into May tends to be the review period within most of our curriculum. So we like to get at least out toward affectionately known as tax day for most of us, and then start assessing there. We give the autonomy to the principals to set their schedule. In terms of a benefit or a negative consequence to testing, we do assess science before we go to spring break. We treat that as an opportunity for kids to get familiar with the ISAT testing, as well as the way the science test is scaffolded. It's more about process and procedure than maybe content. And we also make sure that our systems are set up to get ready to test the rest of the populations.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, trustees, may I take a minute and clarify? So the question came up about cluster outbreaks last week when we were visiting with Southeast District Health. On their dashboard, it said that their schools were reporting a cluster outbreak. So the question was, what's a cluster outbreak and who are these? I mean, do we know who the schools are? I was not aware of a cluster outbreak. And that's when I was informed that cluster outbreak would be 2 or more students. And it could be like you're looking at the same class or same school, same pod, some way that they're connected or they've been able to interact. So it was considered. So we have not experienced a cluster outbreak for some time. I would say that we had a cluster outbreak back in November, December, with some special education classroom. And there was 2 or more individuals that have been in that classroom. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. So ever since then, we were in remote, correct?
Right.
And then we came back at the, after January 18th.
Very. It was right after the holiday.
After the MLK holiday.
We did have a classroom in quarantine before then. It was again a special education classroom, but remember that we have special education students have been coming to receive those services, and some of our special education students cannot wear masks due to the nature of the situation. So that was a concern. That's always a concern.
All right, so and just a clarification, we are at this moment in hybrid, correct? 2 days on, 2 days off. And then our elementary is half a day, correct?
Right, there's an AM pod and a PM pod. So every elementary school student comes to school every day. They're just in pods, morning or afternoon.
And they're virtual on Wednesdays, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Allison is listening into the meeting. She doesn't have access to a microphone. So she sent me an updated slide of the Syringa Middle School students' information. There was when we showed the slide, there's an error in that slide. I just sent it to you in the email. And so make sure that we have that. And I'll put that into Board Docs so it's available for the public.
While we're waiting for Mr. Short, I have a few questions, but I thought I might throw one out there. So if we were to, let's say, open up our schools and be in person, what would our Caldwell online school, would they have the option to stay where they're at? Or would we require them to come back?
Sure. Madam Chair and trustees, our intent when we established the Caldwell Online Academy, we said it was for the year.
Okay.
So that those parents knew that there would be that's what they signed up for. They knew they'd be online for the entire school year. There was no intent of having those students come back Now, we have had students return to the brick and mortar from Caldwell online, but that was by choice, not because of a decision the board made or a decision by parents and students. So we would expect them to stay in Caldwell online.
Dr. French, I'm wondering if you might be able to review the recommendations from the principal of Caldwell Online Academy, like by grade
Oh,
level.
sure, I will. First, this is the, how would you feel if scheduled to, you could come to school every day? That is the corrected slide. We're showing that. It almost looks even across.
So what's the difference? Do you remember? And I know it's
Oh, that was incorrect. Yeah, it's right further down. That's how the school year was going.
Oh,
What's the
next one.
next one? So you can see that's a difference. So it showed 44% in the middle, in the number, that middle category. It's actually 20. Actually like 20%.
so it kind of evened out everything,
It did, actually.
like all the way through. It's kind of like 2020, 2020, 2020 almost.
Mhm. That's what it is. So, and the secondary students are, it's just interesting how it starts to change at secondary level. Now, you wanted to look at the COA, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be, it was a Caldwell School District mail, COA availability. It was an email from Karen Cameron.
Turned into a PDF. It's the top one.
That's the very first one. So Karen had sent this last, oops. She sent this last week. So there's room. In those grade levels, third grade, we'd have to look at, because right now, third grade, we're using IDLA to help with the third grade. So if we had more third grade students. And in second grade, we need to find some support in special education to support the number of students in second grade. If we had more students, we needed that extra support, time and support. So sixth grade, it's all IDLA, so there's no more availability in sixth grade. We'd have to really look to see what that, if there were a lot of sixth graders wanting to go that route, I don't know. But we'd have to look to see what we could do.
Right now, COA is K5.
Right, our teachers are teaching the K5. So Caldwell teachers teach K5. And then the 6 through 12 is through, we're working with IDLA to provide those courses.
And Dr. French, the colleges that are teaching the online academy are also teaching. It's not like a separate teacher that's teaching that. They do it in
Right,
In
so they
addition
were
to their
teachers who had,
in-person.
they had sought like maybe an alternative to being in the classroom at the beginning of the year. So it was like a leave of absence. Is there another option for me because of the concern for health issues that they had, even with their own families? So they were teachers who were seeking another route, and we made this available and they applied for these positions. So they're out. They may have been in a brick and mortar last year, and the enrollment is such that we were able to use them in Caldwell online.
Full
solely
time.
online.
So
Mhm.
Okay, Caleb, I think maybe, I don't know, would you like the dashboard? Would you want to go to the dashboard? That'd be great. And just kind of, this is the most recent dashboard, so. And this is where I saw that right here. So multiple schools in Canyon County were reporting cluster outbreaks. And I didn't know who that was, but there are a lot of schools in Canyon County. And we have not reported a cluster outbreak. And we really, and actually in athletics, we've done very well, which is very happily surprising. I'm just glad. Wrestling worked out well, and they kept the wrestlers in pods so that they could easily trace if there was an issue.
And so we are now in yellow, correct?
We are in yellow. And I will say this, we do not have a plan when the community is yellow and we consider bringing students back. We don't have a plan for that. We don't have a plan that says the community's in yellow, vaccines available. So, we had talked about possibly putting together a teacher task or a task force team, teacher task force, administrative task force, whatever that looks like to. So we would have, it's not like our plan addresses everything we would want to do. We definitely need to look at bring the school operations back to talk about what does it look like. We cannot physically distance students in the building, all of them back at the same time. We can't do that on buses. The one thing we can do is require masks. That's really, and so the school operations task force team could need to come back together. I hope that makes sense. I hear people say, well, so are we going to green? Well, green is a plan when COVID has subsided so much. But COVID hasn't subsided. I mean, it's gone down a lot, but our community is not what Southwest District Health would call green or they're gray. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when people say, well, you're going to green, well, no, we'd have to create.
So we have a plan when we're in green, meaning that COVID has subsided, but we don't have a plan when we're in yellow and we're going to be in
Acting as
school,
though we're in green.
in person,
Right.
teaching in person.
We want to definitely address that to make sure people, understood what would be most helpful in making sure kids are safe and staff is safe.
Mhm. Okay, well, we definitely appreciate all the hard work that was done to get these surveys to us in a small amount of time, so we appreciate that. And it was interesting to read the comments, and they were all over the place, but thank you for that, because that was what we were asking for, information from parents, teachers, and students. Trustees, what are your comments? What are your thoughts? We have, tonight is, to take action, whether, if we want to stay hybrid, or if we want to open up and have whatever different type of scenario we may come up with. And then we'd have to decide on a timeline so that we could give the administration a timeline of what we want to do. And then I would also like to hear from what the recommendation from the school district to see. And I don't know if trustees, if you want to hear at this time what the recommendation would be, or if you want to voice your comments, what would you like to do?
Dr. French, do you have recommendations?
Well, thank you, Trustee Gooding and Chairman Christina. I did. I felt very comfortable coming back. Then I read the student comments. And then I'm like, well, that is very interesting. I thought it was interesting. The secondary student comments made me start, I had to stop and reflect. Reading the parent comments, I think parents are very supportive of, schools reopening and getting back to having their children in a routine. And I'm like, well, I think that is very positive too. If I looked at just the comments are really powerful, and some of them are the student comments are. There are several that are very touchy. There's a desire to be back. There's a fear of what the unknown. And if I could figure out a way to physically distance 1,400 students at Caldwell High School, that would be so great, right? I still feel like we're looking down the road. I would recommend considering returning after spring break. So we're more than a month away. But I also know that you have to consider things. I'm going to support the board in whatever decision that you make. And there is something to be said about the routine. So there's something to be said like, well, this is the routine, and secondary students, their comments mostly were, I know this is my routine. I'm doing well, I have it figured out. And elementary students are all in when you read their comments, and they love their school and they want to see their friends. I mean, it's just such a different perspective. And we see from the staff surveys and parent surveys the desire to be back. Staff surveys, it may not be at 80%, but it's 60+% that we're seeing, that they would like to have their students back. And is there a way to keep us safe? That is the challenge, right? And I've heard from some teachers that we have to make sure people wear their masks. They have to wear their masks. It has to be required. And the only thing I cannot be in every school every day. And I know the administrators are monitoring, but we need to help each other. Just say, it's not going to protect your beard from getting COVID or your chin. You have to wear the mask appropriately. And even with the vaccine, you have to wear a mask. I mean, that's what we're hearing, and that's the best way to protect the person. Because I may not, as a vaccine recipient, I may not have COVID, but I could carry it. And so in order to protect others who do not have the vaccine, I have to make sure I wear my mask. So there's a lot to consider. I was very I'm hoping by March, the end of March, it's looking even better. I do appreciate students saying they do not want to go back and forth. If something should happen with the new strain and then we have to close, they do not want to have to do that. And I agree, that would just be, parents, that would be horrible. It's been a challenge already. So I don't know if that was a recommendation. I feel like I might have just went to the number 3 thumbs up.
Right in the middle. Right.
Yeah.
Definite maybe.
Dr. Prince, there was a lot of parent comments that wanted us to make sure their students were safe.
Mhm.
And I mean, we can't do that. We can't say that, yeah, they're going to be safe. Nothing's going to happen to them. We can't do that. It's impossible.
Well, we've seen that this year.
Yeah.
Right? We've already struggled with keeping some of our most vulnerable students who cannot wear masks. Not every student will wear a mask. They can't. I mean, there's a reason they're not. And if we know that reason, we have to understand it. And I mean, you have to understand that there are students who will not be able to wear a mask. And you're right. I
Can't guarantee it.
can't.
They're asking.
And we cannot guarantee physical distancing. We are, right now we're running different bus routes, right? So AM kiddos go, and then they're taken home, and PM, so that the buses are not as heavily loaded. So
I heard a comment this weekend from somebody in the community that said the staff, our janitorial staff, maintenance staff, are struggling with, having enough to wipe everything down, clean everything.
What was the comment?
That, they've been, some days they need them here, they gotta go here, then they go there. And I don't know, that might be a rotation, that's normal.
Madam Chair, interesting. I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
Now, I do know that hiring in general has been challenging.
Mhm.
We've had job openings for a while in some positions all school year now, and we do not have the applicants.
In maintenance and janitorial.
I would say overall.
Okay.
So, when we started this out, we knew we'd need all hands on deck.
Mhm.
This custodial staff would not be able to go between classes and wipe things down between every class. That's not gonna happen.
Mhm.
And we were forthright with that. So when I have been in schools at the end of a pod or a PM, or end of a class period, the secondary students are wiping down, they're helping, we have to have
Okay.
help. Everyone has to work together, because it's not, right, it's,
Yeah.
you
I mean, the
know,
teacher has a lot to do in between classes.
and the custodians, we've asked them to make sure they're wiping down areas that are high traffic areas, still doing their cleaning, but I feel that I have not heard that they've been
Okay.
pulled.
Okay.
No, there might have been at the beginning, we may have asked for some help.
Or maybe
No, I
this
really
person's
can't
just a roving personnel that goes from school to school.
I can't speak to that,
Okay.
but I can look into it.
I have lots of thoughts.
Go ahead. This is why
I
we're
don't
here.
even know if I can like articulate the thoughts that I have so that you all understand.
Do your
So
best.
so the data and focus on that yellow, the students are the ones that answered in yellow, right? They're indifferent, like, oh, I don't feel so great. And the fact that we've always struggled with, hey, our challenge is that we need smaller class sizes so that we can teach our kids. And so we give them the time and that they need. And so there's so many advantages to limiting the class, not only for the safety, but also we can focus. And it's already a routine. So they've had this routine. Now we're going into like not making a decision. We talked about not making a decision until spring break, and then you have a couple months where we're going to change everything, and then so the fact that it's already a routine is an advantage in and of itself. And then, but on the other hand, the elementary kids that have already been going every day, and the half a day thing is not the best model for parents for the barriers that they face. And so I'm like in the middle, just like the students in the yellow. Those are my thoughts.
Madam Chair, I have some thoughts.
Yes.
So I've been thinking, I'm looking at some of the data, which parents are more comfortable having kids go back. And so, for example, elementary K-5, 73% of parents were in that 4 or 5 category, wanting their K-5 kids to go back to school. And it was a little lower for middle school, it was 68%, high school was 62%. I'm just thinking about kids, and I mean, from a lot of our different articles that I've read, older kids are more likely to transmit the virus and to have community spread than are younger kids. I'm also thinking about neighboring school districts. And I'm thinking of Valley View and Middleton, who have been going K-5 full time. And the charter schools in our area, their elementaries have been going full time. I'm leaning towards maybe having our K-5 kids go to school full time, and then they have the secondary kids finish out, have them finishing out hybrid, and doing the elementary switch after spring break, giving staff more time to get vaccinated. The CDC came out with some new guidelines on Friday. I don't know if any of you guys have had a chance to look through those. I've digested some of it. But I think that, potentially we could get the K-5 kids back going full time. It kind of speaks to what Claudia Trustee Swasky was saying about a little bit about elementary kids. And the elementary kids, it seemed like they were more receptive to going back as well. High school kids are they're all over the place. I mean, there are a lot of issues, I think, way beyond academic issues. I think there's a lot of emotional issues and challenges that secondary students are facing. A lot of them, just my experience as a secondary teacher myself, a lot of the secondary kids, high school kids have jobs. I mean, a lot. Freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, they have jobs. And for good or for ill, it is what it is. Some of them are helping provide for their families. And then I also look at the teachers. The middle school and high school teachers are also less reluctant to go full time as well, because of the social, the physical distancing issues. K-5 might be slightly more manageable, not perfect. We cannot guarantee, if we decided to go that route, we could not guarantee 6 feet physical distancing. We couldn't do that. But we also know that community spread within elementary schools also happens less. We know that community spread in our area has gone way down. It's at, what was it, 2 point something, 2.3 per 10,000. So I don't know. I guess I'm leaning towards, that's what I'm leaning towards, is maybe having K-5 go full time 4 days a week, starting after spring break, giving teachers a little more time to get vaccinated, though that is just only one of the mitigating measures. The CDC talks about that. They're not mandating, they don't think you should mandate it. They do think it is good practice, because the more people you have vaccinated, more, the closer you're gonna get towards this herd immunity. And so our little guys, I think I think they need to be back in school if we can somehow get them back into school. And not to belabor the point, but that's sort of where I'm at.
And what are you talking about? 8 through
So 6 through 12
6?
would remain in hybrid through the end of the year, is my thought. Just reading through the comments of teachers, reading through the comments of parents and kids, and the older kids are more susceptible to spreading COVID than are the younger ones, according to a lot of different research pieces that I've looked at, or news articles about research pieces that have been put out. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, yeah. Thank you. Madam Chair, I want to echo exactly what Vice Chair Manning was saying. We got so much feedback and emails about our survey that we sent out. A lot of the high schoolers they're okay where they're at. They're okay. There's a lot that want to go back to as well. But I got to echo what Travis says with Vice Chair Manning about the K-5 going back full time. And all of this after spring break is what I'd like to say. Just so we can have our teachers vaccinated for the second time, hopefully the second time. They're safer. And again, our high school, our 6 through 12, I'd like to see them in hybrid myself. And that's just echoing what Vice Chair Manning said.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Bodina. Trustee Butler.
Yes.
Your thoughts.
I've been a proponent for going back full-time for a while now. I will say that the surveys coming back from the students were a little bit sobering. The parents overwhelmingly want their children back in the classroom and are ready for them and feel that it's safe enough. Run through some of the numbers. Trustee Manning just went through some of those numbers. And it's interesting that the students are some of the opposite. At the high school, it was 37% say yes, 42% say no, with 21% saying maybe. And then as you went down, talked about a little bit. So I had to, keep going with the numbers because that's until I find an answer, find something that makes sense. So I took the averages of the parents, the students, and the teachers. Added them all up, averaged them together, and I got 57% say yes, 22% say no, and 20% say maybe. And I'm happy if somebody else has different numbers, but that's at least what I came up with. So it still leans, that we're ready to be back full time. I realize that we will not be able to do the physical distancing. Waiting until after spring break, we are opening up for warmer weather, where hopefully we can open the doors a little bit, open the windows a little bit, maybe allow the kids out, during those peak times of the cafeteria and things like that, or maybe they can go outside and eat. So that gives me comfort a little bit more because we are going into warmer weather. And so that's kind of my basis for that. And just seeing that I think we're there. And again, anticipating that these numbers are going to continue to go down. For 2.3 already, we're talking about another month. And again, anticipating that they'll continue to go down. Who knows where we'll be by that point. This might be a whole different conversation if we're actually in the green, the community spread of gray for the Southwest District. And I feel like it's from that point, it's fourth quarter, so it's 8.5 weeks till the end of the year. And I think it'd be good to have everybody in kind of with that intermingling and having students interact with each other going into summer, and kind of almost as a test run for the fall also of what that might look like coming back in August and how we can do in the middle of this, and who knows where COVID will be come August. Hopefully we'll be able to open fully without question. So I think it'd be a good trial run. I feel like the numbers show that we're ready for it. And so I'd be open to having everybody go full time after spring break.
So what would it look like, Dr. French? Because I know that we don't have a plan.
For Madam Chair, for this scenario,
Let's say the scenario to have K-5, go all day, with the exception of Wednesday being a virtual day. How,
Madam Chair and trustees, I would recommend that we bring a task force back together, both school up or we all need to return and have that discussion, depending on where we're going to. I still see we need to have that discussion of what does it look like, right?
Right.
So that we can plan for the future, so that we have some ideas. I did appreciate, I think there are neighboring school districts who are struggling with the same situations, and it does help to bring input. I have to say the survey was enlightening. We had not surveyed students, really not at this level, and I appreciated their feedback, and I appreciate the parents' feedback. This is a major decision, so I would encourage us to please let's visit with our task force groups that met last June and give them a chance. I do know from hearing from some building administrators, they would like enough time. So, because their minds are wrapped around the plan and making sure that they're upholding the plan as it was presented. And they just need to have time to wrap their minds around, okay, now if this is what we're doing, I need to be prepared for this. And what will it look like and how do we manage the situation? So they just ask for time, because it's a switch, right? When you're working with 7, 8, 10 children in an AM pod, and now you're rescheduling your specials. It's just a whole different format. Does that make sense? So I do think we need to bring that group back
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Dr. French, I believe we sort of had started this conversation of splitting between the elementary and the secondary back in December. And do you remember any feedback from that? I seem to recall things, but I don't know how good my memory is. I felt like there was some pushback on that between the staff. Not,
Okay,
But-
Madam Chair and Trustee Butler, in regards to like having the elementary back
right,
full-time,
but not the
secondary,
secondary.
I would hate to speak out of, I think there were some, I had thoughts on that, but I
Haven't
can't
revisited it
recall.
since then.
I'd have to go back to notes or and see. I think, I do know we've heard from teachers who participate in the superintendent council. And so 6 of those individuals are elementary, 2 middle, and 2 high school. And we did hear from one elementary that just said, we need to do a study in what has happened with our small class sizes in elementary. Because they feel like they have really been able to do a lot of good things with the smaller group. There's hardly any discipline issue, right? A lot more one-on-one time for students in this. And I thought, well, that was interesting coming from the elementary teacher group. But there are also elementary teachers in that same group where we understand that, it's very possible we could come back. Everybody around us is, but what would that look like? But we haven't talked about elementary back, secondary staying hybrid. Because really what we talked about last week was people coming back.
Sorry, do you have a follow-up question?
No, that was it. I just,
Sorry.
Madam Chair, I have another question. So the secondary, so middle school and high school, do they stick with the same 2 days a week based on their group, or do they change?
No, sorry, I'm Madam Chair and Trustee Swasti. So A-day students come on A-day.
And they're always going to be 8 students. They don't ever split. So it's been the same consistent.
Unless they forgot what day it is. And then occasionally the principal will help them, try to help them remember that they're a meeting. But it still happens, but it's
2 days. So they'd be moving from 2 days to 4 days.
That would be interesting.
If
Double the people.
we went all day,
Yeah.
if we were in person, okay. So is it safe to assume that we're in agreement about waiting until after spring break? At least, are we there as a board?
to do anything.
To keep everything the way it is right now. And then talk about changes. Can we at least agree to that right now? Yes.
So are we agreeing right now? My thought is, this is as an action item. I'm thinking if at all possible, make the decision tonight.
Mhm.
Whatever, what we're going to do so we can give staff, families, parents time
Mhm.
to prepare for that.
So that would give us from here until spring break is the end of March, correct? So that would give us
22nd,
4 weeks.
Yeah. It's like come back on like the 29th or 30th.
I'm thinking we're still in the middle of February.
Right, the 15th.
So 6 weeks, if we count this week, next week.
About 6 weeks, 5 weeks.
We'll be back in 6 weeks from tonight.
Do we
Yes,
remember?
you'd be out 6 weeks. We'd be back the 29th if that were the case.
Okay. And I was saying to the trustees, my comment is that it would at least give us, if we did full day for K through 5 and having Wednesdays off, and then doing hybrid, keeping hybrid for the secondary schools, we could at least, I feel it would be like a middle ground, just to not go full force just in case we had a cluster or a new strain of the virus, and so I'm leaning towards trustee, vice chair Manning and trustee Godina on that portion of it. So I don't know if we'd like to ask for a motion, and then we can discuss and then do a vote.
Madam Chair, and, well, actually, would you have a timeline of that task force to come back? I mean, last week we talked about getting a decision made pretty quick. What are you looking at as far as the
Oh,
timeframe?
Madam Chair, I would say we've started those discussions. I've already visited with April, who's over the school operation plan. So they're putting that in their mind. I just need to visit with Jody about the instructional plan, the instructional group, the instructional task force, myself with the governance, and and then the wellness. I mean, we can have Patty Wade and China Herzog can go over the wellness, just review that wellness plan. But I would say we could start that right away. I know they're all listening.
Yes.
So it's just a matter of,
So those 5 weeks, 6 weeks, is that ample time? I don't know if there's ever an ample time, sufficient
well,
time.
this
but
has been just the most odd year anyway.
Yes.
I mean, if just like Trustee Swastika said, there's a point where we only have 7 weeks left of school. That we have to think, and either we look at it like Trustee Butler said, well, it's a trust run for the fall and what it would look like, because we're running out of, is it feasible? Is there time to really do something meaningful? Does that make sense? I think we have to just be cognizant of the time frame. So we'd have to be able to do something in the next 6 weeks, not counting spring break. So it's really the next 5. And it probably needs to be sooner than 5. It needs to be for the board meeting in March 8th, I would say. That's going to be quick, right? To really do. But I think people are thinking about it, so it may not be, I want to say, like, they'll be building the plane in the air type of, thoughts. People trying, well, this is what I think it could look like. This is how I think it could work.
And if we're on that, Dr. French, if we're on that trend, hopefully we'll see lower numbers at that time as well. We can make
I'm hopeful.
So I raised that question, is what happens if we're already at that point by then?
If we're at which one?
We're assuming, what if we're at that, 1.2, 1.5, banking on 1%, where we would be going into the green or the gray, Southwest District Health gray. But then we stay a hybrid, even though now we're doing the opposite, right? So right now we're trying to decide what to do when we're in the yellow, when the county's in the yellow. But and then we're going to switch it, potentially it could get to the opposite where the community is better off, but we're still operating in the hybrid. So that's one of my concerns.
There's some unknowns out there.
Time.
Yeah.
So much,
We're hoping to get right there. That's
Yeah, it's odd for me to be the optimist.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. That's not normally my forte.
Well, and trustees, I think that's the challenge is the timing. So let's say the community is green in mid-April. And say we stay with what we're doing right now, because that was the plan. Yellow is hybrid and we're doing it well. I feel like it's going well, right? We've been able to manage, we're managing the substitute teachers. That has not been a real problem. Either schools are managing that. I will give credit to HR, Elsa Leon, who has really worked hard recruiting substitutes, and she's on the phone early in the morning to get them out of school, which we totally appreciate. So we either stay with the plan, and then communities in green on April 17th. They want to pick tax day, say April 17th. Then you only have a few weeks of school left. And do you bring everybody back? You know, you have to give yourself a little bit of a transition time to re-gear up all the buses, make sure you have drivers because you're gonna have more drivers because you'll need more routes to cover everybody coming. It's like this is, you know what? At that point, you're almost like, well, we're doing because it's too
Or
short of a
wherever we're
time.
in.
Because it does take time to gear that up, like the transportation, child nutrition.
We can't do it at a snap of a finger.
And we heard a lot about that too, is staying consistent.
Yes.
With a lot of parents, a lot of students too.
Staff, too.
Staff, yeah.
And I could almost see April 17th and we're in the gray green. And then we're back here and people are like, oh my gosh, you know, another change this school year.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's
Good information too.
You know, the nice thing is it's going down. I mean, the numbers are going in the right direction. And thankfully, we are seeing less staff out with COVID or being quarantined, which the best person for the student is that teacher, their teacher. Subs, we love subs. But we also know that that teacher is, that's why they're hired or they're contracted. We need them to be there for students. So it's been great having teachers in classes with students.
Another question
Yes.
regarding, I don't know if there's some unique thing or, but the academic achievement with this model, has it been measured at all? I think has it been measured? And
Madam Chair and Trustee Swastika, we have some data and we can put together a report from the data we have. We have some IRI data, which is the reading indicator, which would be a K3. We have some, it's called MAP data, which is our own assessment data that we collect to see how students are progressing, which we could share. But we would need to, if you'd like to see that, we could gather. I will say that from, and Jody is on the line, and Jody is prepared, but from what we're initially seeing and what Jody has seen as well, is that our students are doing, when they talk about lost learning, that is, our students are growing. And they're doing well for the situation we're in. So we're not seeing regression.
yeah, because that's the assumption.
That is the assumption.
So it would be valuable, that information would be valuable just, if we choose to stay the way that you're saying, have that as evidence that, they're going to be okay. We stay consistent, stick with this model team. Just, I think just adding more stress is, we've already had a lot of it. Some of the unknowns, that's just where I'm moving towards.
Well, and Jody, are you available to speak to what you have seen?
Madam Chair, trustees, Trustee Swastiki, could you ask, you were muffled with that last question. Could you ask it again, please?
Well, Jody, the question is, do we have data, academic data to show whether students are growing or have we seen a loss of learning?
Superintendent French, trustees, what we're seeing is a trend line of students are growing. It's a different trend line than we've seen in the past in terms of the trajectory. And I think we can account that to, just the amount of instructional time, therefore the amount of learning time. But as Dr. French knows, when I hear learning loss, we're not losing learning. What we're doing is we're on a different trajectory that can account for the amount of instruction time, therefore learning time. But overall, actually, that's what I'm looking at right now. It's funny that you've asked. What I have seen is that we are, as we compare to the state, In areas where we were equal with the state, we're equal with the state now. In areas where we were low prior to the pandemic, we're still low. And so it's not necessarily that as a district, as a grade level, as a content, we're taking steps backward. We're right on pace with where the state is, as well as where we're seeing our different groups going. Dr. French spoke of the teacher that said that, you know, we would really like to do some type of a study, because I do believe in our elementaries, I can speak to that situation, that the 3 hours that teachers have the students is incredibly focused. It's essential. It's not overbearing, and I don't want it to make it sound like, you know, it's 3 hours of nonstop, hang on to your bobby socks kind of conversation. But it is incredibly focused, and teachers are able to instruct, therefore students are able to learn without any of sometimes that outside information, such as bullying or discipline or just off task. That teachers are able to better assess, they're better able to provide feedback in a very intentional and direct way, as well as they're able then to instruct in a smaller group. So we're seeing benefits from that. The learning loss itself, I would say we're not losing learning, we're just on a different trajectory.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Vice Chair Manning.
I'd like to make a motion that we maintain the secondary schedule as is through the remainder of the school year. And that we have K-5 go back to full-time 4 days a week, starting March 29th.
Okay, I have a motion. Wait just for a second.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Okay, any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I still feel that it would be better to reopen with the secondary as well. I'll ask for an amendment motion.
And I'm for either keep it or keep it.
So,
Madam Chair, this is Jody.
yes,
We're really having a hard time hearing you as the conversation. If, at least for me, and I know I'm sitting up in my office and I could just simply walk down, could you restate the motion, please, as well as just a little bit of that conversation that just happened?
I can restate the motion. I think the fan on the projector, maybe which is close to the mics, might be making it harder to hear, but my motion was to keep secondary in the same schedule as they are currently through the end of the school year, and then to move K-5 to full-time 4 days a week, starting March 29th.
Thank you. That was much better.
okay. And so we had a motion and we had trustee Godina seconded. And then I believe we have trustee Butler who would like to amend the motion. So if you want to,
No, I was saying that I will not amend the motion at this point.
oh, not
That,
amend the motion at this point. Okay.
That I do feel that it is behooving to reopen in fully secondary.
Okay.
and elementary.
We will state that in the minutes. Yeah, that we'll just his concern, but let's, any other comments, discussion, or we're in the discussion section of the motion? Trustee Swansky, you had a comment, but I didn't understand, I apologize.
I'm just trying to like, when we hear what Jody just said about, hey, if we can do a study, you know, the smaller classes are doing well with kids, and we're bringing all that. So it just doesn't make sense to me to bring them all back and keep the secondary. I'm still processing. I'm still,
I think we'll get a lot more feedback, Dr. French. Madam Chair, when we get feedback from the committee as well.
Well,
Well, by then it'll be too late.
yeah.
Because we're making that motion tonight, making that decision
I
tonight.
mean, we're gonna meet again in March 8th.
Right, the motion was to maintain that. Or
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay, and that's kind of what, the reason for this meeting tonight. So let's take a vote. All those in favor of opening up K-5 all day with 4 days a week. May I clarify Wednesdays off? Mr. Mann?
Yep.
Okay, and then keeping the secondary school hybrid the way it is. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. And that was after school.
Yes, after spring break. Okay, and those opposed, nay?
Nay,
So then we have a tie break, or a tie. So I will go ahead and vote aye. And so motion carries.
So Madam Chair and trustees, this is what I hear you say, and I'll say it really loud. So the motion will be to return elementary school to full day with their, I'm gonna say their schedule from, their bell schedule that was in place in 2019 and 2020. Correct? So students have been going to school in the afternoon until 4. That would no longer be the case. Right? So parents understand. Those PM pod students will now go home at the time that was, from previous year. Okay, I want to make sure because I don't want parents to think that we're keeping them in school until 4. They would go back to their 2019-2020 bell schedule. There would be, we will bring the task force back to say, what does that look like in an elementary? Because we can't physically distance. In a lunchroom situation, bagging lunches for everybody is really not feasible at that point. So we have to look at that. So we're going to bring that school operation group back for sure. So April will be prepared, I'm sure, for that and talk about what it looks like at the elementary. That's what I've heard, but this would start after spring break. So we need to make sure all elementary school principals understand that's March 29th. And so we would need to make sure we get communication out to parents.
And continue to encourage staff to get vaccinated. As just another layer of protection.
Very good, okay.
And in the plan, because we have to come up with a plan, or the committee has to come up with a plan, I would like to, just have, in case, what would we do if the numbers increase? Just have a backup plan.
And
Clusters or-
I'm sure then saying like at the elementary school and
Yes.
Okay. And I would say, if the community spread increases, is that also something? that you're-
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're considering all of that. What that would look like for elementary. Are there any other tasks? I'd be happy to report back next Monday when we meet about where we're at with that task force group coming together. That wouldn't be an action item, but it can be something we should give an update.
Okay.
we would still need to approve that.
We will. I'll
That
just
would
give you
be
that because
March.
I'm not sure that they won't be ready. But at least we can say the task force are planning, these are the dates they're meeting, what that may look like. We just need to make sure that the elementary staff, principals, teachers, everybody's prepared for that. That's a big change. from what we've been doing. But I want to say, I appreciate it. We'll, we can totally will support all of, we support you and we support the decision. And I do want you to know that I feel like we've done the right thing by Caldwell all year. Whether people would agree or not, we've really worked hard for the children and the staff and supporting parents, trying to do our best in a pandemic. I don't think we really will know the effects of this until we're able to look back and say, holy cow, we just went through something that was, it's a universal issue and it's affecting every country in the world. And we're not alone. And I feel like I just want to commend you for your thoughtfulness and then your willingness to seek input from all different stakeholders. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, trustees. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item is a CFEO update. And so we were able to meet with the CFEO last week. Dr. French, would you like to start the conversation?
Madam Chair and trustees, so last Friday, we were able to meet with the executive board of the CFEO in regards to the T-Mobile contract and T-Mobile's right to act on buying that contract out. Our agreement with CFEO is that the funds that come from that agreement it goes directly to the CFEO. So that was our agreement and has been for some time. So the $200,000 that T-Mobile had offered to pay out that agreement, it will be transferred to the CFEO. Then in our conversation with the CFEO, they guaranteed that those funds would be used for Caldwell School District students. That it is it's not necessarily for students who live in the Caldwell School District, but it's for students who attend Caldwell School District schools. And they were very clear about that. We were concerned that we want to make sure that those funds are supporting our students and the Heritage Music Festival, the Wagons Ho events, and field trips to Florida, to help offset some of those costs. And they were very, I would say, open, and just felt they shared that they have changed their articles of, I'll say their bylaws to state that funds that are received by the CFEO are for Caldwell School District students attending Caldwell schools. So I appreciated that. Madam Chair, we asked a couple of questions of how do we can stay connected, because now we no longer will be issuing $2,400 a month to them. So we were always connected that way with that monthly check that went to them. And we talked about, Madam Chair asked if they would be open to having a Caldwell School District board member serve on their board. And William Ginkert was very open to that idea. I also asked if we would please, one, continue to hold your luncheons at Caldwell School District, and ask to please one of us be able to attend those luncheons, because we have not, and they were very welcoming and said, you're always welcome. You can stay for the whole meeting. You don't just have to come for lunch. But Madam Chair, was there anything else that
it was interesting, the information that they have. The history behind CFEO, it was established in 1992. And throughout the years, it started just as a scholarship fund and endowment into these scholarship funds. And now it's not just scholarship funds, like Dr. French was mentioning. There are school districts, and we have heard from Dr. Farrell, where they have requested funds for some of the science trips that she's planned for our middle school kids, and like Dr. French said, our music festivals. And I know that when I was at PTO, at elementaries, a member of PTO, they would pay for our Wagons Ho, the history portion of it. And then also they would fund our buses so that our kids could go to fine arts programs. So there's a lot of things that they've helped out. The information that they gave us, we had a lot of good information from the treasurer, John Dean, who started out in 1992 as, I thought this was kind of, it made me chuckle that he was the temporary treasurer for a time being, and he's still the treasurer. So he mentioned the workings of how the accounting goes, and my takeaway from it is it's a very organized it's a very structured organization. They look at where they can invest the funds to make the most money and where they don't. And so it's very, very organized. They know what they're doing. And they talk about how right now, I believe they have $1.96 million worth of money in their endowment funds. And so this would, the 20,000 that 200,000 would make them go to their $2 million mark. It would help them with that. So I feel very confident that money's going to come back to us. So I believe the takeaways from that meeting was that they were going to create or draw up a new contract. Yes. Similar to the one that we had, but just to the fact that it wasn't going to be that monthly, the funds weren't going to go in. It was going to be, all of it, but we would still be connected. And just an FYI, the folks that sit on the board of directors are Mr. Bill Gigray III, Joan Van Schoik, Chuck Randolph, John Dean, and Kathy O'Bannon. They are their executive board. And then they have some other board members, and we do have Anita Wilson and Josh Engler. Josh is our trio upward bound teacher. And then, of course, Anita is our principal at high school. So I did request that when Mr. Former Chairman Stout was on the board, well, he was our board representative on that board, on the CFPO. So I just asked if we could have one of our board members on there, and they were readily agreed. So we can, tonight is just information only, but we can take action to see, I'd like to hear from you folks, from the trustees, if there's any interest. And so I enjoyed the information. We also requested that I would like to see a little bit more of them, not just to review, go over their numbers or financial report, but to give us some meat to what their organization does and history, or, and possibly come and talk to the board for a little bit, and maybe every quarter, and just tell them what they have in store, information or even history. I don't care. I just want to hear something so that we know as a school board, what the CFBO is still active and what they're doing, and how our kids are benefiting from it. And they even mentioned that sometimes they have donors that they have had to refuse because these donors want them to open up their scholarships to all Treasure Valley. And they're like, no, we are focused on Caldwell School District. So that gave me peace that, that those funds are coming to our kids in our school district. So that was my takeaway. I don't know if
Madam Chair and trustees, we did ask about CFEO being a foundation, allowing for other individuals who want to donate to a certain school or a group or a project, so that some of you, like some foundations, school foundations, there are community members who want to donate $3,000 to the leadership program at Wilson Elementary, but they have no way to make that donation. They want to make it to the school, which I'm sure that we could somehow take that in, but it doesn't, accounting wise, it's better that when we have community members who want to donate, that it goes through a foundation, through a 501c3. Auditors are more pleased with that, to have it go through a charitable group that supports the school district. So they were open to considering those, when we have outside groups who want to donate to a particular classroom, to the Wagons Ho, to the leadership program at a school, that was something they felt that they could possibly do. But they've done a little bit of that, but it hasn't been advertised as such. And the pro to that, even though that it would be some work on managing those funds, the pro is more people being introduced to what the CFEO does for the community, Caldwell and Caldwell students. So it just helps promote their program as well.
And when we met last week, we had, just so you know, that for the school district, we had Dr. French, April Burton, and our little council, Amy White, and myself. And so we were present and asking those questions. And we had I felt it was a very productive meeting. I felt that both parties were in agreement, and we felt good about going forth with this decision of, and they'll write up the agreement, but it's for them to keep those funds with the end result being that it benefits our kids at the school district. So, anyways, that's what I have. Any questions?
I would just like to commend the CFEO and all the work that they do for all the kids in Caldwell, and time and effort they put in, and all the positive things that they do to expand opportunities for Caldwell kids. I just think that's a tremendous community resource, and so I would just commend you for all your work.
I agree with that.
Okay. All right, and they did mention that their meetings are open to the public. So, they're governed by the open meeting law. So if anyone ever wants to attend, you're more than welcome to attend those meetings. Okay. All right, so that's all I have for the CFEO update. Okay, and now we have the number 3, any future agenda items for a discussion. Okay, enough for discussion. I know that we have next week, we will have our board session, and it will be
Work session will be at Sacagawea, and I just put on their update on task force for future agenda item.
okay. Future agenda item and task force.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to bring something up, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I had a discussion with the SRO officer at the high school that we wanted to bring up about a safe for some of the schools, the secondary schools. And he would like to come and present to us the pros and cons to it.
Okay, and this would be a gun safe.
A gun safe, yeah.
Gun safe.
For a long rifle.
I'd be interested in that conversation as well, just to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
It's, trying to maximize how we can keep our schools safe.
okay. We will add it to probably, we'll discuss, I don't know if we would have enough time for this board session that we're having, the work session that we're having this next week, but possibly the one in March.
Okay.
Sure,
Or
March or
would it be
April,
March.
Yeah, whenever, yeah,
Okay. Just have that.
Okay.
we have much time left in the rest of the school year. So we can
Okay.
Talk about
Mhm.
it in the near future.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other future agenda items that you would like to add?
Madam Chair, trustees, we would like to add Jefferson Middle School to the work session rotation, and I believe that would be May, if there is a work session in May. April is Lewis and Clark, I believe. They're all lining up. They want you to come to their schools. That or I want you to go, so.
yeah.
I mean, do we have to have a work session for that, or can we just show up?
Oh, you could.
I mean,
There's
all of us as a group, or, I mean, does it have to be a work session?
Madam Chair and trustees, we just need to post a quorum that you're meeting there. There's been some great things. I mean, Jefferson has undergone some changes as well, facility wise, but also I wanted to introduce, I was visiting with the principal and their librarian, and they are doing some amazing things in the library. And I thought we should all go over and have Carrie Fisk give us the virtual goggles so that we can go on a virtual trip together that they have there. Oh, that could be entertaining.
I don't know if the
So, yeah, we
other
could discuss-
trustees.
Yeah,
would
if
be
we want to
interested
do
in
a
that.
meeting or if we want to just do a tour.
Uh-huh. I would,
I'll go anytime.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, have any time.
Whatever, yeah.
We want to combine a meeting with a workshop.
With a workshop, that would be nice to do it all in, wrap it up in one.
We just know you're available on the workshop. days.
Yeah, it's easier to,
That's
for me
fine.
to plan that. Uh-huh.
I just brought it.
No,
Okay,
that's,
thank you. That's.
oh, you can go anytime. Just give me, just let them know. you
Yeah,
can.
but if we're gonna go as a group anyway, I'll just wait
Okay.
for Mandy to show me around.
Okay. All right, so that, I believe, takes care of our meeting tonight. I would like to ask for a motion for adjournment.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay,
Second.
motion, second.
After 15.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I have a motion, and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.